Shalom. I'm Rabbi Ariann Weitzman from B'nai Keshet in Montclair, New Jersey, and I wanted to share a bit of Torah with you this week. Moses gives the Ten Commandments again to the Jewish people, to the Israelites, and repeats them almost exactly the same, a couple of variations from what we learned in Exodus. And right before he repeats the Ten Commandments, he gives this little preamble, which I'm going to read to you. This is from Deuteronomy 5. Moses called all of Israel and said to them, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel. The decrees and ordinances that I speak in your ears today, learn them and be careful to perform them. Adonai our God sealed a covenant with us at Horeb. Not with our ancestors did God seal this covenant, but with us, we who are here today, all of us alive. Face to face did the Eternal speak with you on the mountain from amid the fire. I was standing between the Eternal and you at this time to relate God's word to you, for you were afraid of the fire and did not ascend the mountain. So I want to focus on one small inconsistency in this text. It's very strange that it says, we spoke to God face to face, and then it says, Moses was our intermediary. What could that possibly mean? It's also really strange because we know from reading the rest of the Torah that nobody sees God face to face, not even Moses. Moses only sees God's metaphorical back. So it's very odd that the text says we're speaking to God face to face. This not only contradicts the Torah, the rest of the Torah, but it also contradicts some basic piece of Jewish theology, which is that God has no physical form. God has no face. So what could this possibly mean? If it doesn't mean God's physical face that we were speaking to. So there are a few different interpretations. Rabbi Ovadia ben Yaakov Sforno, who was a 16th century Italian rabbi, teaches that face-to-face means that we saw God not in a dream state, not in a nocturnal vision, but we were awake, we were alert, we were totally in control of our senses. So he teaches that revelation, when we're really having a divine encounter, that happens when we're really wide awake. That's not something that's happening in an altered state. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is from Exodus 33:11. The text says that God used to speak to Moses face to face, the way you would speak to a friend. So perhaps this face to face doesn't mean literally face to face. It means in a comfortable way, in a friendly way, in an intimate way. God wasn't making pronouncements from on high, but rather God was speaking to us as a friend would speak to another friend. Right? This was an intimate experience. This was a friendly experience. One other interpretation is from the philosophy of Emmanuel Levinas, who is a French Jewish philosopher of the past century. And he taught that face-to-face, the idea of being face-to-face with someone, was the beginning of all ethics. That is, when you really appreciate another human being, when you see their face, you recognize their humanity, their face, in his words, orders and ordains you. So that means when you really see somebody, you become responsible for them. You become responsible for their interests. I really love this idea. I love the idea that when we see another human being, we really appreciate who they are, we appreciate their needs, and we become responsible for them, and they become responsible for us. It's a really beautiful idea for humanity. But what could it possibly mean for an encounter with the divine who has no literal face that we're looking at? Instead, I would understand this to mean that when we really have a divine experience, when we really have a spiritual experience, what we're doing is we're encountering God face to face, metaphorically, to mean that we're really encountering God's needs and God is really encountering our needs. We become responsible for fulfilling God's needs or for fulfilling God's interests. So my theology teaches that God is not a person. I don't like to anthropomorphize God. God doesn't exactly have interests the way a person would, but when I have a moment of spiritual transcendence, when I have a really spiritual experience, whether it's in prayer or listening to Torah or out in nature or having fun with my kids, when I really have that spiritual experience, I become aware of God's needs in the world and I become commanded to fulfill those needs. So I'd like to leave you with a kavanah, an intention for your own spiritual practice. When you have a really amazing, transcendent spiritual moment, notice in that moment, what are the needs of God in the world? What are divine needs in the world? And how can I fulfill them? Shabbat Shalom.